because I think we're on totally different wavelengths. I'm talking about your statement on common use, as common use being a justification, and assault weapons are not in common use.
And Justice Scalia's opinion used that phrase. Then I think the next sentence of the opinion talked about dangerous and unusual weapons. And the court in Heller itself, the Supreme Court, struck down a D.C. ban on handguns. Now, most handguns are semi-automatic. That's something that not everyone appreciates. Most handguns are semi-automatic. And the question came before us of semi-automatic rifles, and the question was, can you distinguish as a matter of precedent? Again, this is all about precedent for me, trying to read exactly what the Supreme Court said. And if you read the McDonald case, and I concluded that it could not be distinguished as a matter of law, semi-automatic rifles from semi-automatic handguns, and semi-automatic rifles are widely possessed in the United States. There are millions and millions and millions of semi-automatic rifles that are possessed, so that seemed to fit common use and not being a dangerous and unusual weapon. That was the basis of my dissent. In a nutshell, the basis of my dissent was I was trying to follow strictly and carefully the Supreme Court precedent. And I know you've read the opinion.
You're saying the numbers determine common use? Common use is an activity. It's not common storage or possession, it's use. So what you said was that these weapons are commonly used. They're not.
They're widely possessed in the United States, Senator, and they are used and possessed, but the question is, are they dangerous and unusual? They're certainly dangerous. All weapons are dangerous. Are they unusual? And given how prevalent they are in the United States, it seemed under Justice Scalia's test, and if you look at the majority opinion in McDonald, the same thing. I want to reiterate, the Supreme Court made clear that machine guns can be banned. Machine guns can be banned. Let me
speak to you. I'm talking about the Heller case. Let me be specific. And you specifically argued that it was unconstitutional to defend assault weapons because they are, to ban assault weapons because they are in common use. And that, I believe, was your dissent in the case.
Yes, and I was referring to some kinds of semi-automatic rifles that are banned by D.C. are in widely owned in the United States. And that seemed to be the test that the Supreme Court had set forth in the Heller and McDonald cases. In other words, if a type of firearm is widely owned in the United States. Now, whether I agree with that test or not was not the issue before me. I have to follow the precedent of the Supreme Court as it's written. And that's what I tried to do in that case. It's a very long opinion. I also made clear, Senator Feinstein, at the end of the opinion, I am a native of this area. I'm a native of an urban, suburban area where I grew up in a city plagued by gun violence and gang violence and drug violence. So I fully understand, as I explained in the opinion, the importance of this issue. I specifically referenced that Police Chief Kathy Lanier's goals of reducing gang and gun violence was something I certainly applauded, but that I had to follow the precedent of the Supreme Court in that case. And as I read it, that's what it said. I'm sorry.
How do you reconcile what you've just said with the hundreds of school shootings using assault weapons that have taken place in recent history? How do you reconcile that?
Right. Senator, of course, the violence in the schools is something we all detest and want to do something about. And there are lots of efforts, I know, underway to make schools safer. I know at my girls' school, they do a lot of things now that are different than they did just a few years ago in terms of trying to harden the school and make it safer for everyone. Handguns and semi-automatic rifles are weapons used for hunting and self-defense, but as you say, Senator, you rightly say, they're used in a lot of violent crime and cause a lot of deaths. Handguns are used in lots of crimes that result in death, and so are semi-automatic rifles. That's what makes this issue difficult. As I said in the last 2 pages of my dissent in Heller, I fully understand the gang violence, gun violence, drug violence that has plagued various cities, including Washington, D.C. This was known as the murder capital of the world for a while, this city, and that was a lot of handgun violence at the time. And so I understand the issue, but as a judge, my job, as I saw it, was to follow the Second Amendment opinion of the Supreme Court, whether I agreed with it or disagreed with it. At the end of the opinion, I cited Justice Kennedy's Texas versus Johnson quote, which I read yesterday as the guiding light for the lower court judges and all judges.
Let me give you a couple of other quotes, because I'm going to change the subject.